At the start of the 4th century BC, the Achaemenid Empire was the undisputed master of the known world. It stretched from the Indus Valley to the sands of Egypt, ruling over nearly half the human population. It was a world of gold, massive armies, and the legendary immortals. To the Persians, the Kingdom of Macedonia was just a tiny, barbarian outpost on the edge of their map. But in just 13 years, a young man who had barely reached his 20s would dismantle this entire superpower. He wouldn't just defeat their armies, he would erase their empire from the map. This is the story of how Alexander the Great took down the Achaemenid Empire, a campaign that changed the course of human history forever. To understand how the world's first superpower fell, we have to look at the state of the two players. By 336 BC, the Achaemenid Empire was a giant that was starting to show its age. For decades, it had been plagued by internal rebellions. Egypt was constantly trying to break away, and Babylon was restless. The Persian peace, or Pax Persica, was crumbling as succession crises led to weaker kings who lacked the gentle touch of the empire's founders like Cyrus the Great. Meanwhile, in the north, Macedonia was an ascendant military superpower. Alexander's father, Philip II, had done something revolutionary. He didn't just lead an army, he built a professional fighting machine. He reorganized Macedonian society around the military, training boys from the age of 7. His greatest invention was the sarissa, an 18 to 22-foot pike that could puncture heavy armor and stop charging cavalry horses before they could even get close. When Philip was assassinated in 336 BC, 20-year-old Alexander didn't just inherit a kingdom, he inherited a world-class army and a massive plan to invade Persia. He was a student of Aristotle and a master strategist. He knew that to win, he needed more than just spears, he needed a cause. He framed the invasion as a patriotic retaliation for the Persian wars of the past, even though Macedonia hadn't even fought in them. He was invading Persia to punish them for daring to attack Greece a century earlier. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Asia with 50,000 men. The Persian king, Darius III, didn't even take him seriously at first. He let his regional governors, the satraps, handle it. They met Alexander at the Granicus River. Memnon of Rhodes, a Greek mercenary working for Persia, told the satraps to use scorched earth tactics to burn the food and starve Alexander out. But the satraps were too proud. They wanted to defend their land in open battle. At Granicus, Alexander used his superior cavalry to smash the Persian lines. He was almost killed by a Persian axe, but he survived and won the day. This victory was a wake-up call. Towns began to surrender to Alexander as he moved south through Asia Minor. He acted as a liberator, restoring democracies and allowing local self-government, provided they paid him instead of Darius. The first true test between the two kings came at the Battle of Issus in 333 BC. Darius III had gathered a massive army, outnumbering Alexander more than 2 to 1. But Darius made a fatal mistake in picking the battlefield. He chose a narrow strip of land between a ridge and the sea. This neutralized his numbers and prevented him from flanking Alexander. Alexander personally led a cavalry charge right at the heart of the Persian defenses. When the two lines met, Alexander spotted a gap and charged his companion cavalry directly at Darius' chariot. A stunned Darius hopped on a horse and fled, leaving behind his wife, his mother, and his daughters. The Persian army collapsed into a rout. After Issus, Darius tried to negotiate. He offered Alexander 10,000 talents and the land west of the Halys River in exchange for his family. Alexander refused. He told Darius that he was now the king of all Asia, and that if Darius wanted to dispute the throne, he would have to stand and fight. Before heading into the Persian army, Alexander made a strategic detour. He knew the Persian navy was still a threat, so he decided to take away their ports. This led to the legendary Siege of Tyre in 332 BC. Tyre was an island city with massive walls. Alexander's engineers built a kilometer-long causeway through the sea to reach it. When the Tyrians resisted, he brought in a navy of 200 ships and battered the walls until they fell. He then moved to Gaza, where he was wounded in the shoulder, but eventually took the city after 3 brutal assaults. By the time Alexander reached Egypt later that year, the Persians there surrendered without a fight. The Egyptians welcomed him as a pharaoh, naming him the incarnation of the gods Ra and Osiris. He founded the city. The fall of Persia wasn't just about Alexander being a better fighter. It was about a revolutionary way of war. The Macedonian combined arms approach, using infantry, cavalry, and specialized units like javelin throwers in perfect sync, was something the Persians couldn't match. But the real key was the target the king strategy. The Achaemenid Empire was built on the absolute authority of the King of Kings. By using the wedge formation to strike directly at Darius, Alexander wasn't just winning a battle. He was decapitating the entire political structure of the empire. Once the king fled, the satraps lost their reason to fight, and the empire's unity evaporated. After Gaugamela, the empire was effectively split in two. Alexander captured the great capitals of Babylon, Susa, and eventually Persepolis. In 330 BC, he reached the Persian Gate, where a local satrap named Ariobarzanes made a heroic last stand with a small force. But it wasn't enough. Alexander broke through in Persepolis. The ceremonial heart of Persia was looted and burned to the ground. Darius III spent his final days as a fugitive. He was eventually betrayed and murdered by his own cousin, the satrap Bessus. When Alexander found Darius' body, he was reportedly saddened. He gave his rival a full royal funeral at Persepolis and hunted down Bessus, executing him for treason. The fall of the Achaemenid Empire didn't just end a dynasty, it birthed the Hellenistic age. Alexander adopted Persian dress and customs, marrying a local princess named Roxana to bridge the two cultures. Greek language, science, and philosophy flooded into the Near East, creating a new, hybrid civilization that stretched as far as India. Alexander the Great achieved all of this by the age of 26. He conquered the largest empire the world had ever seen, but he never got to enjoy it. At just 32 years old, he died in a palace in Babylon from a mysterious illness. He didn't leave a stable successor, and his vast empire was quickly carved up by his generals in a series of civil wars. The Achaemenid Empire was a masterpiece of administration and tolerance, but it fell because it stopped adapting. Alexander didn't just have a longer spear, he had a momentum the Persians couldn't stop. He proved that even the mightiest superpower in history can be toppled if its leadership breaks under pressure. Today, we remember the names Granicus, Issus, and Gaugamela not just as battle sites, but as the milestones of a total collapse. The Persian Empire fell, but its influence on how we run empires, how we fight wars, and how cultures mix is still with us 2,000 years later. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more deep dives into the empires that shaped our world, hit that subscribe button. We'll see you in the next one.